Behind me is Fort Thüngen, part of the Fortress of Luxembourg City. It's one of the only remaining forts that we have here. But why was it built, who built it, what happened there, and what's inside nowadays? That's what I'm going to try to find out today. My name is Thomas, this is Stones and Bones, and well, let's get started. Welcome to Stones and Bones. Today we are looking at a lot of stones and maybe a few bones. I'm here with Ralph Lange. Ralph, you're going to explain to us what the building is all about.
Oh.
Okay, so what are we looking at here?
We're looking at the keep of Fort Thüngen. So the final defensive part of a larger defensive structure, in itself part of an even larger defensive structure, which is the Fortress of Luxembourg.
Okay, so you've told us we're in Luxembourg. This is only the keep, this is not the fort in itself. Yes, because everyone always called it Fort Thüngen, but the building we're looking at is
the Dräi Eechelen.
The Dräi, okay.
And it now houses the Musée Dräi Eechelen.
And why was it built? When was it built? Who built it?
So it was built in 1732, so almost 300 years ago, in the summer months actually.
Okay.
Because in the winter, the soldiers and tunnelers dug the tunnels, which we refer to as casemate, casemates today. It was built from March to October 1732 under the auspices of the Austrian Habsburgs, which then were the rulers of the Duchy of Luxembourg.
And why was it built here? Because, okay, we are looking at the building and behind us we have the skyline of Luxembourg City, which is beautiful in itself. And I can see there are plenty of fortified walls there. Why build this here?
Well, you already gave part of the answer yourself. We're looking at the old town of Luxembourg because it was in the range of the artillery fire in the late 17th century.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, where we're standing here, if I put a cannon here, I can shoot at Luxembourg City?
Yes.
Okay. And so this thing is there to stop that?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. Because the idea of it actually was thought already 50 years before, when the French troops of Sun King Louis XIV under the siege command of famous Sébastien le Prêtre de Vauban attacked and besieged the city of Luxembourg. This was one of the positions where they put the gun batteries to fire on the city.
Okay.
And in order to prevent that anyone does the same again, Vauban decided to build Fort Obergrunewald, which lies in front of us here.
Or behind us, depending on you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Vauban designed the fort and the Austrians, the Habsburgs, built it.
Vauban designed Fort Obergrunewald and had it built here. In the course of the next 50 years, the developments in artillery were that far-reaching that the actual Fort Obergrunewald wasn't sufficient anymore to keep the guns from firing in Luxembourg. And that is why the Austrians decided to build a further ring around those fortifications that Vauban had built 50 years before.
Okay, so this thing that looks like a castle actually is not a castle, it's modern. It's not medieval.
Yeah.
Falschful?
No.
Okay. And why is it called Thüngen? Or, in French or in Luxembourgish we call it Dräi Eechelen, Trois Glands, which always is a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
And in English, I don't think you can translate it with 3 acorns. The sexual innuendo gets lost there. But why Thüngen? Why?
Well, you could translate it as the 3 glands, but it doesn't really help.
No, a gland is not a gland, no.
No. So obviously the Luxembourgish name or the local name for it comes from the visibility, because you can see the 3 gilded acorns. And now you could see them from the old town. We're looking at what used to be a military zone here.
Yes.
The acorns were added in a modernization of the fort in the 19th century by the Prussians. So by the Austrian times, you wouldn't have, the towers wouldn't have their hats, so to speak.
Okay.
So the upper end of the fort would just be the platform that you can now see behind the towers. It is called Fort Thüngen because it was built during the time of interim commander Adam Siegmund von Thüngen.
Okay, makes sense. And, well, the channel here is called Stones and Bones. I can see a lot of stones, but were there any bones? Was there a big battle here at some point, or?
So it's a tricky question.
Yeah.
Because there was no big battle, but there were some small battles or skirmishes or mini skirmishes, so to speak.
Yeah.
When the French Revolutionary Army blockaded the Fortress of Luxembourg in 1794, 1795, on the other side, not far from Itzig, they had siege batteries built there, and every day they shot a couple of artillery rounds on the forts that were in range, which is basically Fort Rubempré on Sens, where the ENS is nowadays, and some were even as far-reaching as Fort Thüngen.
So of course it's all nice and well to give you names of Luxembourgish places which you probably don't know. So let's fly from one to the other. We are now right above Thüngen, right above the place where I am speaking with Ralph. And now we are diving towards the INS, the Institut National des Sports, National Sports Institute of Luxembourg, where Fort Rubempré was located. And from here we are flying back a little bit to the right, and in front of us, maybe you can already see it, there is a water tower, and to the left of that water tower there's a field, or what remains of a field, and in that field archaeologists have found the remains of French gun batteries, so it's probably from here that they have shot at Fort Thüngen 300 years ago.
So that were the small skirmishes in 1794, 1795. And 20 years after that, after the Allied rollback of the Napoleonic Empire, the Hessian and Prussian troops besieged in the winter of 1814 the Fortress of Luxembourg.
So the last big battle to happen around Luxembourg City was when Napoleon retreated in winter 1814, you said?
Yeah.
And the next big military thing that happened here was World War I, in which, if I remember correctly, there was never a big battle in Luxembourg itself.
There was no big battle, nor was there a fortress left. Because the exact reason why no major battle took place in Luxembourg within these 100 years was the dismantling of the fortress in 1867 and the neutrality of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg.
So why is there a building there if you say that there was no fortress left? I'm looking at fortress.
Yeah.
It's a fortress, at least.
So the fortress had to be dismantled, meaning that it had to be demolished to a point where it couldn't be, where it wasn't of any military use anymore. So you could say that roughly 70 to 80% of the fortress were demolished. Most of it, or the most straightforward explanation, is basically that everything above ground was raised.
Okay.
And the turf from above ground was used to fill the ditches.
Okay.
Everything was flattened.
Yes.
And what remains mostly today, is a network of what we perceive as underground tunnels and that we call cosmot.
So that doesn't answer my question. Why is there a building there? If it was underground, why is it above ground now?
So already in 1867, there was a commission, a Luxembourg State Commission or committee that wanted to keep some of the forts as a lieu de mémoire, so to speak, for the Luxembourg history. We've talked a bit about the idea and the narrative of nation building before.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the 19th century, the state established a commission with the purpose to form a history of what then became the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. And among the contenders to keep as monuments were, amongst others, the Bock. So the enormous keep of the Bock was supposed to be kept. Which it didn't exactly. It was dismantled, and it was decided to build the romanticized, middle-aged tower atop of it, which we call the Höhlenzahn.
Yeah, the Hollow Tooth, yeah.
And amongst others, the Dräi Eechelen, the 3 acorns, were kept. But only what we see, so only the gorge of the redoubt. And the gorge of the redoubt became part of a green park that was designed by the French or the Parisian urbanist Édouard André, who was also in charge of designing municipal park and, well, not what is Parc Trois-Glands today, but the intermediate step.
Okay, so there was clearly an aesthetical idea behind keeping bits of fortress. It was not just that there was no money to destroy everything. It was really...
It was, it had aesthetic reasons. It had historical reasons, so to speak. And it had reflexive reasons. Because in keeping certain monuments, the state and the city together could show that they were now a free country or an open country, so to speak.
Okay.
And that the neutrality that the country had adopted after 1867 was guaranteed by the inexistence of the fortress.
Okay.
So a romanticized ruin of what used to be a major defensive work now became the monument of neutrality, of or the kickstart of a new country.
So for the people that now want to visit it, what do I have to do to get inside? What can I see inside? Is it worth visiting? Is it a special building, or is it just a fort like so many others?
There is no other fort conserved like this in Luxembourg.
Yeah.
It has been rebuilt. Parts of it have been rebuilt. The original casemate and the facade, or the gorge of the redoubt that you see here, is still in its original state, and everything that you have behind the first casemate, so the actual armed room, we would call it a bunker today, is everything behind that is reconstructed.
So if I understand you correctly, the entrance still existed, and everything after that behind the entrance
was buried under a layer of earth in the period of dismantling the fortress.
Okay.
On these foundations now rise the Mudam, the Musée d'Art Moderne, and the reconstructed Réduit Thüngen.
So the Mudam is built onto the Fort Thüngen.
Yes.
Okay.
The Fort Thüngen, to come back to the initial question, is part of several defensive works.
Yes.
The final part of it being the redoubt, the keep that we can see. The keep is arrow-shaped. We can only now see the towers, but the front is arrow-shaped. And in front of the keep lies what is called a bastion détaché, so a detached bastion in the triangular form of an envelope that basically was used as a gun platform to shoot in the direction of the Kirchberg in the case of an attack.
Yes. And in front of that there was flat earth, glacis, like so many other forts.
Exactly. In front of that was what we call glacis.
Okay. And nowadays there's a museum inside here. You've told me. You even work for that museum now.
I do. What a lucky coincidence.
Indeed. So what can you tell us about?
So since 2012, this museum has been open for the public to visit. It is free to visit, and it currently shows in its permanent exhibition a history of, the modern history of Luxembourg from 1500s, so from the beginnings of the Northern Renaissance to the dismantling of the fortress and the first infrastructural project of Luxembourg City.
Okay. And most importantly, the guillotine that stands inside, was it ever in use, or is it?
Yes.
It was in use?
Yes.
Okay, right.
we've talked about the Army of Revolutionary France before.
Yes.
In 1795, they took over the Duchy of Luxembourg. The duchy, being a state entity governed by a monarch, was dissolved, and it became a French département.
Yes.
It became the Département des Forêts, so the forests department, because of
The forests, yes, obviously.
you know. And every French département was sent by the central power in Paris a guillotine, amongst others,
Okay.
in order to be the legitimate representative of law and justice in the department.
That's a nice gesture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because above all, it was the promise of enlightened
Punishment.
punishment, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, clean, quick death, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the guillotine there was French
Yes,
originally.
it has two blades,
Yes.
because part of that enlightened promise is that, you know,
Okay, you have to make sure.
yeah,
Okay.
it was in use until the 1820s, and it stood in front of the governor's palace, which is now the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Okay. So apart from guillotines, what can I see inside the museum? Is it a museum about violent death or law and punishment, or?
It's a historical museum,
Yes.
so you can see historical objects, portraits, you can see everyday objects, everyday use, books, religious votive figures. You can, of course, see guns, you can see instruments, and you can see early photography and the stones.
Stones, yes, but no bones.
No, but
Okay, but guns.
yes.
Okay, so guns, no bones. No, that's not a bombshell, that's a disappointment, to quote Jeremy Clarkson. So it's time to end. Thank you, Ralph.
I'm sorry.
I'm not.
Thank you.
So, Ralph has gone back to work, but you are still here, so if you like this video, why not subscribe and share it with your friends. My name's Thomas, this was Stones and Bones, and I'll see you next time.